if there is an activity that is more critical to the success of your flight than watching that darn fuel gauge, I don't know what it is, because about the time it starts to circle in E is about the time that the so-called air conditioning system in the airplane quits and the pilot starts sweating. Scott, tell me about your company, where it comes from, what you do, and then we'll get into the specifics.
Yeah, Jim. The company started really as a request by CiES Aircraft to come up with something that was actually more accurate and more reliable, basically, than the fuel senders of the past. And they put the inquiry out to me. I had accomplished several things for CiES over the years in the environmental control, their oxygen system, and came up with some creative and unique solutions. And they targeted me as someone who might be able to do this. And we took their request very seriously. And we put a whole bunch of systems on a boat and went boating and started evaluating different technologies and different capabilities, and looked at the basic output to find out really what could be done to actually make an aviation specific fuel sender and do so for a reasonable cost. We evaluated a lot of things, and really it started coalescing on an idea to retain the float, but really pair it up with a much more modern, much more technologically advanced sensor to determine where that float was in the fuel column.
Well, the lack of accuracy in old style fuel systems is legendary.
Yes.
I mean, it hasn't been that long in the past that we stopped carrying our little cut off yardsticks to check tanks and this, that, and the other, and it's been a miserable experience because even that wasn't the most accurate way of doing things, especially when the ramp was a little bit inclined. So finding a way to be both accurate and cost effective is kind of like the holy grail for safety of flight.
I agree completely, and I might have thought about an idea or prediction, or I've been in aviation literally my entire life, and my father is an A&P-IA, retired of course, and he told me getting involved in this I would be sued within the first year.
Oh, don't get me started on the lawyers.
But very much to our surprise and actual benefit, we have 80,000 fuel senders in the field.
Okay.
80,000. So we're covering maybe roughly 10% of the aircraft component in the world. We haven't had a single fuel starvation incident or accident to date, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I don't think that holds forever, but the idea is...
In other words, what you're saying, to run out of fuel with the system of your manufacturer, you got to be really dumb. Yeah.
Yeah, I will guarantee that you had adequate warning prior to that happening to you. And that has been what we can look at, I think, or I believe. You're never in a cockpit with a pilot who experiences that, though they've talked to us about it. The surprise, the literal surprise that all of a sudden that the air conditioning system, as you mentioned, suddenly comes to a screeching halt, and you're forced to find a landing location. The surprise is the component that gets you there, and it doesn't do us in the aviation field very much good, because normally those sort of activities tend to make the evening news.
Yeah, and not in a good way. You're not taking the happy hour on that one.
No.
Crazy. And the sad part of all that is no matter what happens, it's going to be reported inaccurately by the general media. Tell me about your technology, and I realize within the limits of what you can really explain, especially without having something in front of you here, but why is yours a better mousetrap?
It's an interesting technology, and really it's a technology that replaced potentiometers, which would have been the traditional sensor, position sensor in use not only in aviation but also in automotive, and automotive was looking for a better solution. So they settled on this conceptual idea. It's old, called anisotropic magnetoresistive, and I realize,
Ooh, say that 3 times fast.
that's a big word.
Yeah.
But what basically it is a compass, or more accurately, a magnetometer that points to the float, in a magnetic position. So it's a compass essentially pointing to the float. When you step over to that magnetic component and it's electronic, you can now pair it up with a microprocessor and do the things that you would expect to see in aviation. But in automotive, it's the same technology you find in the throttle, for your throttle by wire or your brake by wire, your steer by wire. So the same confidence that you have of walking into a new car dealership and taking a new, let's just say C8 Corvette out and stepping on the gas pedal and
yes,
that you
please.
go.
Yes,
I
please.
know. Or stepping on the brake, that same level of confidence, what you're not even thinking about is the same level of confidence we're supplying to giving you accurate fuel indication.
One of the things that comes with building a better mousetrap is the inevitable issue with regulators.
Yes.
When you come up with a new technology, especially when, and I agree with you about the old fuel systems and brand C there, because I was an owner at various times, and yeah, that was not their best moment.
No.
So they definitely needed to make
It's
yet another
significant improvement. Yes.
Significant is one way to put it.
Yes.
There was a reason the chute got used a little bit too much in those days. So when it came time to get past the innovation stage and get to the certified stage, how big a mountain was that to climb?
Initially I thought that I'd been involved in aircraft certification my entire career, first at Gulfstream and on business jets and other things. So I had a lot of experience and a lot of experience in AMLs working for my prior company. And I thought that this would be relatively straightforward, but we approached it from a TSO level, and as much, I guess, negative thought has been thrown at the TSO, but it actually is pretty applicable, and it's really more or less a self-certification. You present your case to the FAA once you've completed your work. And we got through that fairly easily. The next step came to convincing the FAA. I would say that was a small mountain to climb. And like any good story, there was a bit of theatrics.
With the FAA?
Do tell.
I just wouldn't have guessed.
Well, there's a big issue with lightning protection in fuel tanks. Wings are zone 1, very prone to lightning strikes, and the FAA is very concerned that a lightning strike that induces a current in a wire cannot make it into the tank. Conversely, or if the lightning strikes and goes through the tank,
otherwise known as TWA 800 paranoia. Yes.
Yeah, or it goes into the aircraft wiring and exits out some other undesirable location. And we were reaching sort of an argument that wasn't getting anywhere. So I took our fuel sender and I hooked it up to an outlet plug for the wall. And basically, while holding onto our fuel sender, as I was talking to them, going, I don't understand your concern about how lightning is supposed to get from the wiring. And as I plugged it in the wall, while they all stood, like ready
for the boom.
Yeah, ready to resuscitate me at the time that this was going to happen. And smoke came out of the end of it, as stuff inside melted. But I was perfectly safe holding on to the outside of the sender. But it proved my point very dramatically and without question afterwards. So we tabled that discussion and we got to more.
Of course, nobody would ever insure you again for life insurance.
No, but we.
Suicidal ideation.
Yeah, we did have some, in good cases, sometimes the regulator brings forth, the FAA being them, brings forth a good point, which should be explored. But really it was a matter of convincing them that what we were doing was safe, was effective, and really they got on board. And to no one's knowledge, in 2000, I would say 15 or so, at the EAA when the administrator, the head administrator comes to the EAA and gives a speech. Meet the boss.
I'm there every year.
He mentioned our name right out there in front, and I wasn't there, but everybody was like, "What? We solved fuel quantity? How did we do that?" But I guess my story of plugging into the wall made it.
That was Mike Puerta, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we were there for all of them. We shoot them and so forth.
Yeah,
we got video of that.
Really, I'd love to see that because all I got was the blurb on Twitter.
Oh yeah, Nathan. We always shoot.
Oh, awesome! That would be.
The boss. We'll have to go back and take a look at the archives, see if we got that.
I'd love to see the crowd reaction.
There you
what
go.
happened?
Yeah.
Really? What? So yeah, no, yeah, it is difficult. It's amazing. We just finished up doing a system for the Beech 18.
Oh, God bless.
I
got many moons in those babies.
Really?
Oh, running jumpers and so forth and so on, which, yeah, love them to death. They are the most cantankerous beast in the world, but at the same time, there's something about them that just makes you love them to death.
The sound.
Oh, there you go.
The sound alone. The sound alone. We did a B-17, one of the flying B-17s.
Oh, cool.
We've done all manner of Grumman amphibious aircraft.
We're some fun. You get to play with great toys, don't you?
We've done some of the CASA planes we're being asked for up in Alaska. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we tend to take on challenges even if they don't appear to be. I would say you would think there would be a market there. It just improves our capability of addressing a difficult situation. So
learning curve.
We get involved in other things, but they open up solutions for other more common aircraft.
What's your favorite so far?
I think my favorite so far is getting the system done on the de Havilland Beaver.
Oh.
One, I love them. One, it brings back memories of flying into Canada and going fishing. So I love being around them. It's always, anytime I've been in a Beaver has been a pleasant experience. Mm-hmm. And getting a solution for the Beaver, just, I don't know, it warms my heart because the component part that they would normally have relied on is really no longer available.
Mm-hmm. That was not the most dependable fuel system in the world either. It had its moments. It could be pretty cantankerous.
When you look at the complexity of the system, it was a well-designed system for its age. It was based off of World War I or earlier battleship gunnery. Applied in a smaller version, but yeah, I had to find references in my dad's avionic manuals. Yeah, I know, from the early 50s.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
It's where the expertise was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that had to be a fun project. Those are great airplanes, especially when they pair them with the right set of floats and just go out and boonie bash and all that. They're marvelous birds. One of my fondest memories was running up into Alaska and boonie bashing around in a Beaver with the late John Denver. He was a dear guy, dear friend and a great guy. And I got to tell you, what an extraordinary airplane. It just read everything out to you. It's one of those airplanes that just basically said, listen to me and I will not lead you astray, but listen.
It's interesting to mention because it's sort of like it follows in my life. I was at Bombardier and we're doing systems for the Canadair Challenger and even into the corporatized versions of the regional jet. Mm-hmm. And, I was invited to a party. And Bombardier always threw parties. You'd be there and their Circus du Soleil would be there. I think you might have been at one of those.
A couple of them over the years.
Yeah, and it was, it's always a really entertaining thing. They really set, they provided information, interface of what you needed to do, and then they threw one heck of a party. And I'm standing there and I'm talking to these old guys, in the corner, and we're having a beer. And the reason for the party was to celebrate the original engineers who worked at de Havilland. And those were the guys who designed the Beaver,
Oh my.
the Otter, and the Dash 7, and which I don't know. I think they were involved in the Dash 8 partially, but that was going to be the end of their career.
Oh
but
my.
these were the guys who designed the aircraft, and there I am standing, and we're talking aviation engineering things, and the next thing you know, they're going, and we'd like to congratulate, and all three of them get up on the stage,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was like, that was cool.
There you go.
That was cool.
Well, let me ask you this: what's next for you guys?
You know, interesting. We, you know, I have a good crew, and I have a good group of young engineers, and you know, we all realize that fuel isn't, you know, it will still be around in powering aircraft, you know, through my lifetime, but you know, the future is probably going more towards electric. So we're working with one of the electric aircraft manufacturers, and we're using the positional technology that we have and the mean time to failure, which is over 60,000 hours in CiES aircraft, and we're pairing that up with a dual system in order to provide a throttle system for electric aircraft, you know, as well as doing some of the other systems where this sort of level of position control, reliability, capability, its accuracy would be of critical importance. And looking at a few other systems on the aircraft that measure angles that might be advantageous that our technology could be applied to.
So you're not going to get left behind, are you?
I'm trying not to. I got a good crew. I want to keep them active. I want to keep them involved.
Trying to second guess the future is interesting. Many years ago, I owned a paper magazine. And when I got out of all that to start Aero-News, everybody thought I was nuts. But sometimes you can see when there's time to make a right turn.
Yep.
And sounds like you're well aware. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting hybrid programs. You may not be measuring fuel, maybe you're measuring hydrogen, maybe you're measuring, God only knows. But it sounds like you're starting to think in all the right directions.
You can kind of guess at what the future holds, but you know, as long as
the
you set a
operative term is
direction,
kind of guess.
kind of guess. You know, but if you set your sights on the fact that the world is not going to be the same 10, 15 years from now, you're better able to find that next ride and that next aircraft, that next trip.
Scott, I appreciate so much you being here. It's been a pleasure.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 64th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Dallas, Texas, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.